Imagine being trapped inside a city for months. No food. No rescue. No way out. Every morning you wake up weaker than the day before, hearing enemy drums outside the walls and your own stomach screaming louder than the battle itself. Now imagine the person leading you refuses to surrender. Not because victory is possible, not because survival is likely, but because loyalty matters more to him than human life itself. This is the story of the Siege of Suiyang, one of the most brutal last stands in human history. A story so disturbing that even now, over 1,000 years later, historians still argue about whether the defenders should be remembered as heroes or monsters. Welcome to the podcast You Can't Unhear. To understand how things got this horrific, we need to go back to ancient China during the Tang dynasty. And this part is important because the Tang dynasty wasn't just another empire. A lot of historians consider it one of the greatest periods in Chinese history. Art, poetry, trade, culture, technology. China was thriving. The capital city, Chang'an, was basically one of the biggest and richest cities on Earth at the time. But empires usually don't collapse overnight. They rot slowly from the inside. By the mid-700s, political corruption was spreading, military generals were gaining too much power, and the emperor had become increasingly dependent on regional armies to maintain control. One of those generals was a man named An Lushan. At first, he was trusted, favored even. But in 755 CE, An Lushan launched a massive rebellion against the Tang government and declared himself emperor. And this wasn't some small uprising. This became the An Lushan Rebellion, one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Some estimates say around 36 million people died during the rebellion and its aftermath. Think about that for a second. At the time, that may have represented nearly 2/3 of China's recorded population. And buried inside this gigantic catastrophe is the story of one commander named Jiang Sun, a man who became legendary for his loyalty and infamous for what he allowed people to do in order to survive. Jiang Sun was a Tang dynasty military officer who gained a reputation for discipline, intelligence, and almost terrifying devotion to the empire. When his commanding officer joined An Lushan's rebellion and expected the soldiers to follow, Jiang Sun refused. And this moment says a lot about who he was. Instead of giving some political speech in a courtroom or army camp, he gathered his men at a temple dedicated to Lao Tzu. According to historical records, he delivered such an emotional speech about loyalty to the Tang dynasty that grown soldiers cried and swore allegiance beside him. That kind of charisma matters in war. Because Jiang Sun wasn't leading an elite army, he was leading exhausted men who constantly faced impossible odds. At Yongchu, rebel forces arrived with over 15,000 soldiers. Jiang Sun had around 1,000. And somehow, he held them off. Then the rebels returned with 40,000 men. Again, he defended the city. This wasn't luck anymore. This was strategy. When rebels climbed siege ladders, Jiang Sun's men set the ladders on fire, turning the fortress walls into a nightmare of screaming soldiers and collapsing bodies. When supplies started running low, Jiang Sun played psychological games. One of the craziest stories from the siege involves arrows. His soldiers began firing weeds instead of arrows at the enemy camp. The rebels laughed. They thought the Tang defenders had completely run out of ammunition. And honestly, that's genius. Because once the rebels lowered their guard and relaxed, Jiang Shun ordered real arrows fired directly toward the enemy command. One shot struck the rebel general in the eye. Panic spread instantly. I think what people miss sometimes is that ancient warfare wasn't just brute force. A lot of it was psychological warfare. Morale mattered almost as much as weapons. And Jiang Shun understood human behavior extremely well. But eventually, strategy can only do so much, because starvation always wins in the end. After Jiang Shun's victories, he was sent to defend Suiyang, a critically important city. If the rebels captured Suiyang, southern China would become vulnerable. So suddenly, this wasn't just about one city anymore. This became a symbolic stand for the Tang dynasty itself. The problem? The rebel army surrounding Suiyang numbered around 130,000 men. Jiang Shun and the defending forces had less than 7,000. 19-1 odds. And then came the mistake that changed everything. Before the siege tightened completely, the local governor was ordered to distribute large amounts of stored food supplies to neighboring forts, meaning the city entered a long siege without enough food. That decision would doom thousands of people. At first, the defenders rationed rice carefully. Then they ate animals. Then insects. Then bark, roots, and whatever plants they could find. Meanwhile, the fighting never stopped. Imagine starving for weeks while still having to defend walls every single day. Your body barely functioning. Your friends collapsing beside you. Still hearing drums outside every night. And somehow, the city kept holding. Month after month. By summer, the defenders had dropped from thousands of soldiers to barely over 1,000 survivors. Jiang Shun knew they couldn't last much longer, so he sent Captain Nan Jiyun and a small team to break through enemy lines and beg for reinforcements. This part really feels cinematic. Nan Jiyun and around 30 soldiers escaped through the siege and travelled from city to city asking governors for food and troops. Most refused. Not because they didn't understand the danger, but because politics and ego still existed while people were literally starving to death. One governor even prepared a feast for Nan Jiyun, and Nan refused to eat. Because the soldiers back at Suiyang were starving. Historical records claim he cut off one of his own fingers to prove his sincerity before leaving. Whether every detail is perfectly true or not, the point is clear. These men believed loyalty demanded absolute sacrifice. Eventually, one governor agreed to send reinforcements, around 3,000 troops. But only about 1,000 survived breaking back into Suiyang. And here's the cruel irony. The reinforcements helped militarily, but they also meant another 1,000 mouths to feed. Then the city crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. There was no food left. None. And this is the moment where the story stops feeling like history and starts feeling like horror. At first, the defenders consumed the bodies of people who had already died. Soldiers, civilians, anyone. But eventually, even those ran out. So one night, Jiang Shun gathered his starving men. He praised their loyalty and sacrifices. Then he brought out his own mistress. And in front of everyone, he killed her. He ordered the cooks to prepare her body as food for the soldiers. Historical accounts say many soldiers cried and refused at first. But eventually, they ate. And after that barrier broke, chaos followed. Women in the city were taken first. Then elderly people. Then children. Some historical estimates suggest between 20,000 and 30,000 people were consumed during the siege. And this is the part where I think modern people struggle emotionally with this story. Because on one hand, Jiang Shun's defense of Suiyang may have genuinely helped save the Tang dynasty from total collapse. Military historians argue that delaying the rebels bought crucial time for Tang reinforcements elsewhere. But on the other hand, at what point does survival stop being survival? What scares me most isn't even the cannibalism itself. It's how quickly humans can normalize unimaginable things once survival instincts take over. The city didn't become monstrous overnight. It happened step by step. First, starvation. Then, desperation. Then, justification. And once people convince themselves something is necessary, almost anything becomes possible. That's the terrifying part. By October 757, Suiyang was barely functioning. The defenders were skeletal, exhausted, dying. Out of thousands of original soldiers, only around 400 remained alive. And still, they refused to surrender. Eventually, the rebels finally breached the city. Jiang Shun, Captain Nan Jiyun, and other surviving officers were captured alive. The rebel general reportedly admired their determination and asked Jiang Shun why he fought so fiercely that his teeth had cracked and his eyelids had split from stress and malnutrition. When the general forced open Jiang Shun's mouth, most of his teeth were broken. Jiang Shun replied that he wanted to use those teeth to devour the traitors who betrayed the Tang dynasty. Even at the very end, he refused to bend. The rebels executed Jiang Shun, Nan Jiyun, and dozens of remaining loyal officers shortly afterward. And here's the insane part. Just 3 days after Suiyang fell, Tang reinforcements finally arrived. After several more days of fighting, the city was retaken, meaning the defenders had held out almost long enough. Almost. The An Lushan rebellion continued for years after Suiyang, but the Tang dynasty eventually survived. Technically, Jiang Shun accomplished his mission. He delayed the rebels. He protected southern China long enough for reinforcements to regroup. And many historians still honor him as a symbol of loyalty and resistance. But this story leaves behind a question that's way more uncomfortable than who won. Was it worth it? Because when we talk about heroism, people usually imagine noble sacrifices, brave last stands, inspiring speeches. But real history is uglier than movies. Sometimes survival demands horrifying choices. Sometimes loyalty becomes fanaticism. Sometimes heroes and villains are separated by perspective. And honestly, I think that's why the Siege of Suiyang still fascinates people over 1,000 years later. Not because of the military tactics, not because of the rebellion, but because it forces us to confront something deeply human. How far would people go if they truly believed surrender was not an option? Would most of us have acted differently? Or do we just like to think we would? Because we're sitting comfortably, listening to this story centuries later, with full stomachs and safe lives. The people inside Suiyang weren't fictional characters. They were starving human beings trapped in impossible circumstances. And maybe that's what makes this story so disturbing. Not that it happened, but that under the wrong conditions, human beings are still capable of becoming exactly like this. That's it for tonight, guys. Stay safe, always. See you on the next episode of the podcast You Can't Unhear.